Amina lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling of her small home. Jibril's words echoed in her mind. What makes you happy? It was such a simple question, yet it unsettled her. For years, her happiness had been tied to survival, selling enough pots to eat, to keep a roof over her head, to avoid debt. Now, she had wealth, security, and a thriving business. By all measures, she should be happy. But was she? The next morning, she worked on a new piece, a vase unlike any she had made before. Instead of focusing on what would sell, she let her hands move freely, creating patterns that reminded her of childhood memories. For the first time in a long while, she wasn't working for profit. She was working for herself. Jibril arrived as she was finishing. He watched in silence before saying, "That's the most beautiful piece you've ever made." Amina looked down at the vase. She had to admit, it was different. It had soul. It told a story. Maybe Jibril was right. Maybe happiness wasn't just about wealth, it was about creation, love, and purpose. And maybe, just maybe, it was also about him. The next morning, Amina walked through the market with a renewed sense of awareness. Every glance, every whispered conversation felt heavier than before. Had Chief Okonkwo already begun his retaliation? Jibril walked beside her, his usual calmness unshaken. "You should be careful," he murmured as they passed a group of traders who quickly looked away. "Fear can turn people against you." Amina exhaled sharply. "I won't let him intimidate me." Jibril studied her before nodding. "Then we prepare." That day, he stayed at her shop longer than usual, watching the customers, the passers-by, even the rival traders. Amina focused on her work, but she couldn't ignore the weight of his presence, or the quiet comfort it brought her. As the sun set, she locked the shop and turned to Jibril. "What if he does more than send warnings?" Jibril's expression darkened. "Then we fight back." And for the first time, Amina realized she wasn't just battling for her business anymore, she was standing against a man who thought he could control her. But she wasn't alone. Amina's fears became reality the next morning. She arrived at her shop to find her best pieces shattered on the ground. The shelves were overturned, and the door had been forced open. A few passers-by stared in silence, some shaking their heads in pity. None stepped forward to help. A deep anger burned in Amina's chest. This wasn't just an attack on her business, it was a warning. Jibril arrived moments later. One look at the destruction and his jaw tightened. Okonkwo's men. Amina clenched her fist. "Cowards." Jibril stepped inside, carefully picking up one of the broken pots. "This was meant to break your spirit." He met her gaze. "Will it?" Amina inhaled sharply. Every part of her wanted to scream, to fight, to demand justice. But she knew how the world worked. Chief Okonkwo had money, power, and influence. She had clay and fire. But she also had something he didn't, determination. "No," she said finally, her voice steady. "It won't." Jibril's eyes shone with quiet approval. "Then let's rebuild." And so they did. Word spread quickly through the market. Some traders came by, offering quiet words of encouragement. A few customers even helped her clean up. And though fear lingered, Amina refused to let it take root. By nightfall, her shop was back in order. The broken pieces had been swept away, and new clay was already shaping under her hands. Chief Okonkwo had tried to break her. He had failed. That evening, as Amina and Jibril rested outside her shop, a messenger arrived. He was a young boy, nervous and hesitant. "Chief Okonkwo wishes to speak with you," he said, holding out a sealed letter. "Tonight." Jibril tensed beside her. Amina took the letter but didn't open it. "Tell him I'll think about it." The boy nodded and hurried away. Jibril turned to her, his expression grim. You can't go. Amina exhaled. If I refuse, he'll escalate. If I go, I might learn what he really wants. Jibril frowned. And if it's a trap? She looked at him. Then I'll be ready. Jibril studied her for a long moment before sighing. I don't like this. Neither do I. She glanced at the letter. But if I don't face him now, he'll never stop. Jibril didn't argue. Instead, he simply said, then I'm coming with you. Amina felt a warmth in her chest, one that had nothing to do with fear or defiance. She wasn't alone. And as she prepared to face Chief Okonkwo, she realized something else. She had never trusted anyone the way she trusted Jibril. And that terrified her more than anything.